For this next phase, I am going to be using some white gel pens. I've got these two. One of them is Uniball Signo UM153, and the other one is Uniball Signo Angelic. And the difference between them is that the UM153 has a thicker line and is slightly more opaque than the Angelic, which is a little bit thinner and more delicate of a line. So I'm going to start with drawing a moon, because what I had in mind for this is to do a little moon rabbit dancing with a crescent moon. And I can be kind of sketchy with these gel pens because they are water soluble. So, if I make a mistake, if I don't like the shape of the moon, I could just take some water and blend it out, or even completely erase it like that. Not that I was unhappy with that, but just to show you what you can do, especially since I have sealed my base layer of watercolor washes in with the watercolor ground already. That means that I could just draw all over this and then lift it all up if I didn't like it. Although there is the little sparkly mica layer that is not protected from lifting right now. So that layer would come up if I were to do anything like this. But to tell you the truth, the sparkly mica stuff tends to get everywhere anyway. So even if I were to lift a certain area, I'm sure it would fill up with sparkles somehow. All right, so I have the moon there, and then I think I want to have this rabbit. Let's see. I'm not even sure exactly what kind of pose to do yet. I want him to be kind of playful. Twisting around here. There we go. And now I'm going to sort of erase some of those extra lines. There aren't too many of them, but just to get rid of them a little bit. And then I'm going to take some white watercolor ground. It's Daniel Smith, even though it's in a yogurt jar here. It's the same stuff as this, except instead of being transparent, it is a mostly opaque white. And I'm going to use a smaller flat brush and just painting in the areas that I've outlined. Now this watercolor ground, in contrast to the gel pen that I was just using, is not going to lift if I make any stray lines or marks that I don't want, I don't desire. So I have to be a little bit more careful as I'm applying this. But I do let it stray out past the boundaries because I want this rabbit to have a little bit of a moonlight glow to him. So I'm actually letting the dilute brush strokes extend in this haze around the rabbit's body. And I'm not staying within the lines. And I'm going to do the same thing to the moon. Letting this diluted white extend outside the boundary. Getting this rabbit's body a little bit more defined so it's not quite so nebulous. And also the moon, getting another layer on. Going back to my white gel pen. Starting to fill in some brighter areas now. Now that I have that soft glow look to the body, I want to add some more solid whites. You can use white paint also. I like this just because it lets me draw and it's quite opaque. White gouache also works pretty well. Now, as I mentioned before, it's water soluble, so I can blend it like this. Soften up all those edges, maintaining that glow look by not having a harsh edge on the contours. See, I'm just running my brush parallel to the contour edges, and that lets me blend out the white a little bit while still maintaining the shape that I've drawn. The other reason I kind of like using the white gel pen for this is that the scratchy texture of it serves well to give a little bit of a hint of a fur look, a fur texture to this rabbit. See, it's a little scribbly right now, but then when I take the brush, damp brush to it, I can blend that all out, and it softens all the lines to whatever degree you would like. You can maintain some of the hard edges, or you can just blend it all out into this nice smooth look. You don't want to load up too much water into your brush, just enough to have it damp. Damp so that you can move the pigment. You see, I'm actually leaving some of the gaps that the scribbly bits left, because that gives it a little bit of texture there that I enjoy. Fluffy white poof of a tail. Now this is the back leg, the leg that's behind the body. So I'm going to leave it not quite as white, but I'm just pulling a little bit of that white pigment into it. And the forepaws here. And then doing the same thing I did with that back side leg for this paw, which is also on the back side. So I just want to pull out enough of the white to brighten it against the background, but not fully white as the rest of the rabbit is. And then the same kind of treatment to the moon. Where I'm filling in the body of it and then blending the edges of it as well as the interiors. The interior, I don't want any of the, I don't want a furry moon. Not like the rabbit. So smoothing all of that out. but making sure that I don't have a hard contour edge on the exterior so that we maintain this glow effect. Switching over to a really teeny tiny brush and some white gouache now, adding some fine fur details to the outside contour, the outline of the rabbit's body. So with my strokes, I pull away from the body in the direction that the fur would be growing. What this does is just really nicely blends your strokes into the existing mass of the silhouette. You know, if I were to go the opposite direction, going inwards, that would put a more heavy emphasis on the beginning of my stroke, and you wouldn't get this really delicate, fuzzy look. And I don't just do one pass. I actually go back and forth over an area a few times. That lets the strokes layer up. I'm using a size 0 round brush for this portion. And then the same kind of thing for the ears, though maybe not as long and trailing wispy as I did on the hindquarters there. A little more tight and close to the silhouette for this portion. But the same technique, really, where I'm pulling my strokes away from my silhouette and into the surrounding area. But always following the direction that the fur would actually be growing. You don't want to have that at odds, and then it just looks messy. It looks like uncombed hair if you go the opposite direction. Sometimes I have to rotate my canvas to get to areas comfortably. You see, as I'm doing the chest here, it would have been awkward for me to do it from this angle. So I want to rotate things and switch it up so that it is comfortable for me to access those and maintain that same kind of stroke where I'm coming away from the body and curving in the proper direction. Some whiskers. Long, trailing, delicate little lines. And the paws. So the legs and the paws are not going to have these long hairs, these long trailing ends, but I do want to define the paws themselves, which I had not yet done at an earlier stage because I want to have the more delicate control of my brush. I want to add a little bit of shading to the body of the hair. So I've got buff titanium mostly, but it's kind of mixed with whatever I've got in the corners of my palette here, which is a little bit of some greenish tint. And using those same short, curved and light strokes that I did on the fur, on the silhouette, I'm doing the same thing now for shading some portions of the body. And now I think I want to add some trailing bits from this moon. Still using white gouache. Longer strokes, longer curving continuous strokes are the best. If I break up my lines too much, I lose the smoothness. So it's a bit tricky, but you want to try to do it, you want to try to do the curves within a single stroke, if at all possible. I also want to do some little starry bits. Just dotting these in. And then I rinse my brush off so that there's just water on it. And then I just go around the edges of these little dots, and that blurs them and gives them that same kind of glow that the moon and the rabbit have already. But that sort of elevates them from just white specks on your page into something that looks like it's glowing.